Frankie, Fearce, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I found you on Instagram, as I do with most of my guests, and I'm essentially just really interested in you as a person, a creator, and sort of your upbringing, your sort of religious evangelical upbringing that you had. So why don't we start with your experiences in the church growing up?
Well, it's all I knew. I grew up in a very much a bubble. So my parents were Pentecostal evangelical Christians, and then they sent us to this Baptist-run Christian school from kindergarten to year 12 that they couldn't afford. I think because they grew up in a really rough area, they didn't want to send us to public school. They wanted us to have no, they did that because it's like it is a bit of a cycle especially where I'm from, because I'm from the Central Coast, so it's very different to Sydney, culturally quite different. And I think public schools here can actually be really nice, and in some cases even better than private schools. Like, I've heard some really good things about public schools in Sydney. It's not like that where I'm from. They can be very rough. So I think my parents didn't want me they wanted me in like this Christian bubble, which is what I grew up in. So I'd go to church every weekend, go to Christian school Monday to Friday. That was my life for 18 years.
Yes, yeah. Same. I went to, I grew up in a Christian environment too, went to a Christian school, and yeah, sort of coming out was probably not that great for me. I sort of want to ask, like, how was it for you, sort of, realizing you were queer? That's a word you use, right?
Yes. I use it. I use it a lot. It a lot.
That's your preference.
Yeah. I think it's the best term. It's easier than saying LGBT.
Well, I prefer gay, but I said queer because I know other people. But yeah, maybe I'll just say gay. You say queer. We're essentially talking about the same thing.
Yeah,
just using different language.
Tomato.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, I think I always had this little inkling that I was weird and different to everyone else, because I can remember very, very early on having a crush on this older guy in choir that had like a lead singing part. He was really hot. And I remember as a very young child saying to myself, I want to marry that man. And everyone around me was like, you can't do that. Like, you can't marry men. It's not allowed. But I honestly, like, I actually left church and deconstructed my Christianity way before I figured out that I was queer.
Really?
Yeah. I know that.
The opposite way around.
Yeah, I did. I really did it. It still affected my ability to accept it and realize it even. But yeah, it's still, that's the thing that still gets me about my upbringing. It still affects me in ways that I don't realize. Even though I've deconstructed it, I consider myself non-Christian now. Yeah. There's still just things about the way I was raised that affect me that I don't really realize until someone points it out, or something like, oh my God, I don't think I'm a straight person comes up.
Yeah. When did you sort of, like, what led you onto the path of deconstruction or leaving Christianity?
Okay, this is going to sound really weird, but I read the entire Bible cover to cover.
How long did that take you?
It was in my final year of high school. I heard this like technique for it. It's like, I was thinking it's like 5 chapters of Old Testament, 2 Psalms or Proverbs, and then 2 chapters of the New Testament. I did that every day until I'd read the entire Bible. And after doing that, I just kind of looked at, because I think up until that point, I had read the Bible, but it had kind of been read to me. I was told how to view it, how to see it, and I was taught what Jesus was teaching people. I was taught what he stood for. I never actually had read it for myself and actually evaluated it for myself. And that, seeing that, it's kind of like because I was in Pentecostalism. They're very big on like brands and franchises and this particular aesthetic that is very like counter to Christianity, in my opinion. But it was that, and also hearing the accounts and testimonies of how people in more developing countries perceive Western Christians. That was also a big thing that kind of dialed me away from church. So for a long time, it was just I'd left church. I hadn't left my faith. I still believed in Jesus, and I actually left church because I wanted a more authentic connection with Jesus. I wanted I wanted something realer than what was going on around me. And then, yeah.
What is that? Like, did you feel like you had a relationship with Jesus?
I mean, I think I felt like I did, but I think I really wanted to get outside. I just saw so much wrong with church as an organization and as an institution. I think there was so much wrong with it. I think they got so much wrong, and it wasn't even like a couple of things, no one's perfect. I just saw massive disparity between what church started out as and what I had attended for the first 18 years of my life, because we're talking about like the early church. They all came together. If you wanted to join, it was a hippie commune, essentially. That's how you can interpret it, because they all came together. You had to sell everything you owned. You couldn't hold any possessions, and you had to pool it, give it to the community so that everyone could eat. That's what the early church was. It was fellowship, breaking bread, prayer. And
now it's become these like big multi-million-dollar institutions and structures.
Yeah, because like when you think like Jesus hated rich people.
Yeah.
He hated them. He hated religious elites and rich people, but he hung out with the degenerates and the outcasts of society who would been taught to be afraid of and judge and view as immoral. That's the people that Jesus hung out with, so that really did a number on me. So I wanted to get out of that and find my own authentic version of Jesus and what that looked like.
Yeah, and would you say you've completely walked away from Christianity now?
Yes. I still think there are some really valuable stories and lessons in the Bible. Like I think, like take the meaning from it, take the lessons, but I don't think it is the infallible word of God. I
think who could that?
Okay,
cool.
Where was I?
Someone's just hit the intercom.
Yes, yep. Someone's just hit the intercom. What was I talking about? Oh gosh,
we were talking about how
you're a spicy brain.
You walked away from Christianity and you sort of wanted to like explore Jesus to yourself. I'm interested. Yeah, and you're not even a Christian anymore.
No, I'm not a Christian anymore because I obviously I kind of ended up on the fringes of church, and everyone. I see this. I don't know what other denominations of Christianity are like, but I know in Pentecostalism, if you take a step back, they start to question your faith. It's like, because I think it's very much a lifestyle. I find it so ironic that they're always like, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. But they ask you to serve. They ask you to give 10% of they ask you to like live a very specific lifestyle. And if you're not a cog in that machine, serving, contributing, you're not like the ideal Christian.
Yeah.
You're kind of like not fully in your faith with God. So I took steps back, and, rumors were circulating that I was backsliding, that I was walking away from God, which at the time was the complete opposite. So I just ended up on the fringes of it. But what really started me on my journey away from Christianity is I went stargazing with a really hot person, and they had all these questions about the stars, because I live on the Central Coast. There's no city there. You can see the stars quite clearly. They had all these questions about the stars, and I didn't know anything. I was like, I don't know anything about stars except God made them. That's all I know. So I was just I just decided I was like, I'm never going to be in that situation again where I'm next to a hot person looking at stars and I don't know the answers to questions about stars, because it's something I was a little interested in. So I started watching this science series about what I thought was about stars. And the second episode was about evolution. And I got so angry because I was like, firstly, this is supposed to be about stars. And secondly, this shit makes so much sense. It made so much sense. Like, and then I just started, it really started to make me question my faith, because I realized that up until that point in my life, I'd never been taught how other people think. I'd never been taught how other people understand the world. It was either, we're right, this is why they're wrong. Like,
they're choosing their own way.
Yeah.
They're gonna go to hell for choosing their own way.
Yeah, I remember my dad used to tell me that evolution was just something that atheists made up so they didn't have to believe in God. And I remember once one of my teachers in primary school, he said, we know that God made us because you weren't born with a carrot as a leg. You weren't born with broccoli as a head, like just random.
That is so random. I have never heard of anything like that.
But it was just like, that was all I was ever taught about evolution is that it was stupid. It was dumb until I actually learned it in high school, and I was like, this is stupid. This is dumb. Not interested. God made the world. That's all I need to know.
But then you realize science makes more sense than
I realized that the whole look. I'm of the position that I think that you can believe that God used evolution. I don't have any problems with Christians that believe it, because it makes sense, because that's how the world came to be. And once you learn how it works, it makes so much sense, and you can just see it everywhere around you, and so many things just make sense. Like one of the things that really did my head in is every single mammal on the planet has the exact same bone structure in their hands. So even horses with their hooves, if you look at a horse's skeleton, looks like that. Okay, whales. Why would you make the inside of a whale's fin look like a mammal's hand? Right, because that's right. It's stuff like that, and then I just started just going on this never-ending questioning of my faith, because I just started learning more and more and more.
So you walked away from the church because of the sort of church structures kind of stuff, and then you were still sort of exploring your relationship with Jesus while sort of discovering all this sort of evolutionary sort of stuff. And then what sort of made you sort of walk away from Jesus?
There were two insane things that anchored my faith. The first one was that when you're a Pentecostal, you believe God because you've experienced God. And they always told us that. They're like, no matter what the scientists say, we know God's real because we've experienced it. I remember my mum used to say that to me. The person with experience, sorry, the other way around. Someone arguing with someone that has experience is just like, don't even try. They're at mercy to that person. So we were like, I've experienced God, right? Because I really grew up in that, speaking in tongues, faith healing.
Whoa, speaking in tongues, can you do it?
I tried. I mean, I can. That's the thing. I can do it. But it's not like a. I wouldn't say it's authentic.
No, I remember doing it in church as well, and that's just what everyone was doing. And as soon as I did it, it's like talking in gibberish, right? Like, I don't want to sound like a crazy person, but like, And it's like you think, oh my God, I'm now spiritual. But looking back on that, it's yourself. But it was like I was using it to think that I was like next level Christian. Do you feel the sort of same?
Yeah, it was kind of like a step in your journey with God. It was like you'd be baptized with water and then baptized in the Holy Spirit, and that's the sign of it.
Yeah.
But that kind of came undone for me when I found out that there was a magician, or really calls himself an illusionist, that trained an agnostic to be a faith healer. like trained him how to do it. And then this guy held a service and played the part and did all the tricks. And it just like, it was like something clicked in me.
Light bulb moment. Like
Light bulb moment.
This
It
is
was
not
like,
real anymore.
yeah. It was like that was one, because that was one of the things. That was one of the things that really anchored me. And then I realized that, no, not really. I didn't. It's,
wow.
you know, and then the other thing is, I remember, once again, I wasn't given like a round science education. They just told us why, you know, information that was like, see, God's real. Like the fact that they always told us, like, if the earth was like on one axis, like if it was 2 degrees one axis one way, would be too cold. If it was 2 degrees the other way, would be too hot. And then I found out that the Earth's axis is actually constantly moving. It's not fixed. It's actually always moving. And that's why we go through ice ages. And that's why we have, you know, I learned that, and I was like, okay, so that was bullshit.
So a lot of the stuff you were sort of learning sort of counteracted what you had grown up to believe.
Yes. And then I think one time they gave us the statistical probability that a planet like Earth could exist to support life. And I think it was like 1 in 100 trillion. Like, it was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous amount of zeros, you know. And then I learned about how big and expansive the universe is. And in terms of the universe, it's not that big a number. Like, you know, because there's even that many more stars. And it's how, you know, I think I was just given a lot of half truths. And then another thing that really, really like took the wind out from under me, the rug, whatever the saying is they always told us that carbon dating didn't work. And I found out, you know what? It doesn't work on marine life. So they'd tell you, they carbon dated these seals' bones, they carbon dated this sea snail, and it came back to be thousands of years old. It only died yesterday. It's because carbon dating only works on trees. Like, they never told us that.
I'm fascinated that your sort of journey out of faith was discovering these scientific truths.
Yeah. And I don't, like, that's the thing though. I think that people can. I'm a strong believer that truths can exist at once. I think you can be Christian and believe in evolution and the science. I think it's perfectly okay to say, I believe in God and I believe that He used evolution.
Totally, yeah. I think that's probably what I believe. Yeah.
Genesis is a poem. Yep. It's you know, it's not a historical text. It's a poem, and yes, I think that that's. But I personally, I don't see it. I don't see a hand of God in that.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
All right.
Yeah.
I know. I keep looking at your tattoo.
Oh, my tattoo.
Not today, Satan.
Yeah.
For those who are listening, you've got a tattoo on your stomach saying "Not today, Satan."
And I've got a little upside down pentagram.
Yeah. Tell me about that. When did you get that?
I've got some Edelweiss flowers. I got this. Sometimes I like being really ironic. Like, sometimes I will be in a car with friends and put on Hillsong. Like, I do. I really like to. Sometimes I get nostalgic and I reminisce. And I had this during the 2021 COVID lockdown. I got this patch and I put it on the back of a jacket and it said "Not today, Satan." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, that's sick." Because I think this is another thing. Even though, like, I'm not a Christian anymore, I was still raised as a Christian. It's still very much a part of me.
So it has like sentimental meaning.
It has sentimental meaning, yeah, because I think Christians always kind of view all their troubles and, you know, difficulties in life as being the work of Satan. And it's kind of like "Not today, Satan" is like this very like defiant phrase to say these troubles, this shit that's going on in my life right now, it's not taking me down. Not today. I'm not folding in half. I'm going to stand strong. That's why I got it.
You're an enigma, Frankie. You're like, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to, you know, I spend a lot of time on the podcast. I talk about Christianity.
Yeah.
I also talk about gender.
Yeah.
It's a sort of a big topic for me. And I haven't had anyone non-binary trans who is more on the progressive side.
Yeah, right.
So I wanted to sort of ask you sort of about, your own journey and sort of understanding of gender. Perhaps we could start with well, first of all, how do you identify?
I identify as like non-binary. I think that's probably the best label to use. I still think gender is a social construct though. That's my stance.
So explain that to me. What do you mean, when you say, gender is a social construct?
It's
For the layman.
Well, I think a lot of so for me, it is winter right now, so I am wearing jeans. But this idea that women wear dresses and wear makeup is just the way it is, and it's not really because women aren't born with makeup on. They're not born with dresses on. That's something that they're taught and has pushed onto them, and it's how they define themselves. It's how they mark themselves as a woman.
Yeah.
But it's not inherent to your biology.
Yeah. Well,
and I think because there is a difference between biological sex and gender, because I really do think it's just how do I describe it? I think it's just all the societal expectations on how you dress, how you act, your interests.
Yeah, I agree. I this idea that women have to be feminine. I suppose I'm not looking very tomboyish now, but I usually dress like a dude. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of write all that stuff off as like it's not important. Like I'm a woman, regardless. But I'm interested in your sort of your experience. So when did you realize that I'm non-binary and you adopted use they them pronouns?
I use she they pronouns.
She they.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you sort of come to this realization yourself?
It kind of goes back. Look, it goes back a long time. I think I've always been very feminine, even though biologically I'm male. I've always been so feminine. I remember my sister used to say, I always wanted a little sister, and I got one. And it was just, at the time, it was to tease me. And that's the thing, my whole life, I've always been called a girl. And then the moment I was like, you know what? You're dead right. Suddenly everyone had an issue with it. Suddenly it was like, no, you're a man. You're a man. You're a man. But where was I? What was the question again?
You sort of realize you're a girl.
Yeah. So I came out in 2020, and then it's crazy though, because I remember before I came out, I'd get picked on and bullied a lot for, being feminine, wearing nail polish, just doing girly shit, which I always loved doing, which in itself I think is a social construct. And then the moment I did actually come out and say, yeah, no, I'm not straight, it's like everyone was like, oh, well, all this girly shit's okay then. And so I just started exploring it more and more. And I just found that I really liked myself the more feminine I dressed and the more feminine I looked. I have this rule when I am getting ready to go out somewhere. I know that I'm happy with what I'm wearing when I can look in the mirror and think, yeah, I'd fuck me. That's how I know. And it's like, that's how I describe it. Just,
would you say you're, it sounds like you're saying it's a femininity.
Yeah.
That makes you feel you're a woman? These are big questions, I guess, but I'm intrigued, and perhaps I'm interested in comparing our experiences, because I feel like femininity is not what being a woman is about. But would you say that for you is what being a woman is about?
See, I don't know. I still think it's all just a social. It's a social construct, because I think this idea that you you have to be like the one of these two things, and that nothing exists in between. And if your private parts look like this, you are assigned to this group and you have to act this certain way. And if your private parts look like this, you're assigned to that group and you have to act a certain way. I think it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me.
You're
because,
more fluid.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I just think that like nature is so much more complex than that. I think our biology is so much more complex than that. They just define us by our private parts.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Because I honestly think it goes back to Christianity, because we do, in the West, we live in very Christian dominant worlds. There is this idea that we are above nature, that we're separate from the animal kingdom. It's not who we are. But if you look at, even in Europe before Christianity took over, you look at like Celtic religions and paganism, they didn't view themselves as separate from the animals around them. They believed that everything was connected. We all lived in harmony with each other, and that's where we came from. So I really do think, I just see this whole like insane need for you're a man or a woman really comes from Christianity a lot, because really biologically it just doesn't, we're not black and white. It's not this or that. There's so much complexity in between.
You've made a comedy show.
Yes.
Are You a Girl? Are You a Boy? Which I feel like by the name talks about a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
Why don't we go into sort of what that show is about?
Okay, so the show starts out with me kind of addressing, because if you are listening and you can't see, I have a thick moustache. And I basically start talking about how my life started changing, and more so how men started treating me differently after I grew a moustache. Because there are men that I'd worked with for like a year and a half that had not given me the time of day, barely said a word to me. Then the moment I had a thick moustache, stopped dead in their tracks. And suddenly I started getting treated differently, because now I wasn't just weird little fairy. I was a fairy with a moustache, like a thick 70s porn stash at that. So I kind of start talking about that, and how I do find the way that men base a lot of their masculinity in how much facial hair they can grow. It's just a bit bonkers.
Yeah.
Because not every man can grow good facial hair. Some of them can barely grow any facial hair. Because another one of the things I notice is when I could grow good facial hair, so many men come up to me and say, I wish I could grow something like that, eh? Like, I tried so hard. I didn't shave for like 4 weeks and there was nothing on my face. It's just that nonstop. I think every time I went out, I had several men like tell me that, because it's like, yeah, like some men can grow absolute amazing monster beards, and then some can barely get a hair on their chin. And also I think that's where a lot of that whole, where our biology differs, or I don't think it's as clear cut and simple as men grow thick beard.
Yeah.
Women have clean faces with no hair on it.
It's interesting because, it's sort of, and maybe is this where the non-binary comes in, because most transgender women, like, they try their best to look really like feminine, and then you've got a mustache, which most people would think it undercuts it, but now you're just like, well, this is why I'm non-binary, because I'm sort of fucking around with it.
But I don't know, I think that seeing the mustache was just another one of those moments where I was like, I'd fuck me. I fuck with this. I like it. And then there was just something about seeing myself in a miniskirt, really well done makeup, and then just, also being compared to Murph Hughes or some other guy with a gnarly mustache that just did it for me, And also I think it does it does serve as like a layer of protection as well, because people get very angry and very violent when they see what's the word, AMAB person. AMAB, so assigned male at birth, dressed in feminine clothing. They can get really angry because it
goes against the sort of societal gender.
But also when they start checking someone out like that, and then they realize, oh, this person has a penis, they're like, oh my God, am I gay? And then they just go through this whole like aggressive process. I find the moustache just cuts it out straight away.
Yeah?
Yeah. A lot of people are too scared to approach me, which is great.
Well, do you just get I don't want to.
I mean, that's not the sole reason I have it. Like,
no,
a genuine,
but it's just like, what
it's just
are
like an
you?
added bonus. Yeah.
What are you?
Yeah.
You enjoy that a little bit. Well, not, you don't, yeah.
It's like a layer of protection.
Okay.
It's a layer of protection.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How do you sort of find people do treat you sort of in general in terms of your sort of gender and your gender expression?
I have to deal with a lot of really visceral reactions, whether it's a positive one or a negative one. I have to deal with a lot of very big emotions and big, it's crazy. Hey, I remember once I was walking through Central. I walked past a guy. He's like very masked, had a VB stubby in his hand. And I remember walking past, and as I walked past, I heard him go, "Oh shit." And I was like, oh, fuck me. This is like, he's going to try and start some shit with me. And he's like, oi. I turned around and he was like, that looks great. And I was like, whoa. I really thought I was going to. Yeah. But sometimes it's the other way around. People get, like where I got the title of my show, Are You a Boy or a Girl, was after a music festival. I assume some guy saw me with my friend who was asking, it was after a music festival, there were people set up selling sausage sangers. My friend was hungry because she's always eating, and she was asking him, like probing him what sausage sandwiches they had. I was just standing next to her, and then before I knew it, there's a massive dude standing over me, and he's interrogating me about whether I'm a boy or a girl. And I was just like, why do you care?
Yeah, I'm going to, like, how do you sort of respond to those? Because, I mean, I can resonate with what you're saying. Like, it does, I mean, and being gender non-conforming, like, I believe I'm a woman because I'm female. I believe it's my biological sex that makes me a woman, but I still sort of deviate in that sort of gender non-conforming sort of way. So it's all about, like, how people treat you and stuff. But how do you sort of respond?
In that moment, I said to him, I said, why is this important to you? Like, why do you care? What does it matter?
How's that working out for you?
Yeah, well, he didn't like that. He didn't like the answer. But that's how I respond. Like, how does this affect you? Always the answer is it doesn't, because it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not hurting unless I'm actually like physically hurting someone. Even then, I don't think it's really relevant. Yeah, it's because it doesn't. It's just, they are just clothes. I'm just wearing clothes that are traditionally assigned to female bodies, because I don't fit what a female body is supposed to look like. Just wrecks people in the head.
But you're also not, you're not adhering to that sort of male gender, the stereotypical either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I suppose I'm more interested in how, how do you see people kind of getting on in society with these sort of, because it's a very big culture war topic.
Yeah.
Right? And there's so much hatred, and especially coming from like conservative right-wing people, and then there's conversations that like left-wing feminists have about like bathroom usage and stuff. But I'm just interested, like, is there a way to sort of get on with each other while having these different conceptions of what being a woman is, what gender is? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
How do you sort of see people? How would you like to see people getting on while having these different conceptions?
I think, in my opinion, I think that people need to realize that they have a lot more in common with me than they realize. I honestly, I view all this culture war stuff as just kind of like the new scapegoat. It's because I'll never forget this day. I used to be in the Central Coast community group on Facebook because it was just fucking hilarious, the stuff that people would post in there. Like, it was genuinely funny.
No, I know. You can get a lot of comedy material from
Yeah. It was just, I remember there was this phase where everyone was posting photos of jet streams and they were like, look out, guys, it's going to rain tomorrow. And it would just start these endless arguments and it was so fun to watch. But I remember this one time, this guy posted like a trans queerphobic meme in the group. And so I do what I always do. I look at their profile, okay? And when you on Facebook, when you click on someone in a group, it shows you everything that they've posted before. The day before, this guy had posted twice asking for recommendations on cheap caravan parks for powered sites because he was about to become homeless because he'd gotten injured at work. His work was fucking him over. And through all the legal costs, he had no choice but to move into a tent. And that guy was angry at queer and trans people. So the way I view this all, because really, like, me wearing a dress, it's a non-issue. It's just clothes. It does not affect people negatively. It does not destroy the world. It is, in my opinion, it is just the new distraction from wealth inequality because I have more in common with that guy than we realize. That's my opinion. And I think even if you see in like the UK election right now, the current UK Prime Minister is really, really revving up the anti-trans rhetoric because that's how he's going to get elected, by creating this boogeyman that he can make people afraid of and provide a solution to. Because he's going hard on trans people because it makes them forget that he's very much for the 1% and he's very much contributing to making poor people poorer. So how do you as a politician like that get those poor people that you're making poorer, pushing further into poverty, to vote for you?
Bring up some culture war topic.
Bring out some culture war to distract them from the fact that they're starving.
That's a really interesting point.
That's how I view it. That's how I view it. So I'm never too upset when I have to deal with visceral reactions because I understand it's cultural and it's bigger than them. It's bigger than me.
Right. I just want to bring in like maybe a counter argument. I know it seems like we have different ideologies and different definitions and, you know, all these groups of people do. And I'm sort of wondering, I don't know, I see people getting accused of transphobia for like not using someone's pronouns or like, I don't know if those are, you know, is that the general belief or are those extreme examples?
I honestly think those are extreme examples because myself, I'm misgendered. I'm misgendered at work all the time and I don't really give a fuck.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, because I understand that like for people it's new for them. Like my boss, he misgenders me every time he talks to me and I actually don't think it's on his radar to gender me properly. But I've also heard the most progressive shit come out of his mouth that has left me speechless. Like I remember, like, because at our first work Christmas party, I wore a dress and it rustled some feathers. And then the second one was coming around and I was in the room with him and someone said, "Hey, Frankie, are you going to dress up for the Christmas party?" And before I could even get a word in, he was like, Frankie was not dressed up. Those were Frankie's normal clothes. The way Frankie is dressed now in high vis, this is Frankie dressed up.
Wow.
I was like, this from a man that I remember the first time I explained non-binary and pronouns to him, it looked like he was having a brain aneurysm because he just did not get it. And he even says to me, he's like, Frankie, I love you. This pronoun shit is so fucking hard. But I understand why people get hurt by being misgendered, because it is very like invalidating, and it's kind of like, you know, but I think with time, I think people will get used to it.
I just think, like, you know, I've said before, I'm gender non-conforming. I'll use people's pronouns, but I don't like being asked the pronoun question. But then that goes against the whole gender philosophy. But it's like, I'm not being a cunt about it. Oh my God, I just said cunt on my podcast.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
Hell yeah. Do you want me to say it too?
Yeah, go on then.
You fucking cunt.
You said it better than me too.
Yeah,
I just think like do we need to ideologically align is kind of, it's the question I ask a lot on my podcast, to treat people like human beings and get on with each other. And yeah, I think maybe I must have had experiences with non-binary people where they were so militant. I was like, fuck you, then you're not a... And that pushed me away. But now I'm sort of, you know, I spoke to you previously about my political arc sort of changing, and I'm just meeting like ordinary people that are not militant, but they just have a different concept of womanhood or gender than me.
Yeah.
And I'm just interested in like everyone getting on and how to sort of promote that without believing the same thing. Do you know what I mean?
Because I don't live in a queer bubble, right? I'm probably like one of there's not a lot of openly, visibly queer people in the work I do, and because I'm a forklift driver, it's a very mask.
Yeah, well,
place.
there you go with the gender fuckery, right?
Yeah. But the way forward, I think, is to be less obsessed with the label that people use and more fixated on who that person is. So the people that I feel the most safe with are don't always like align politically, don't always like, you know, not that visibly like vocally progressive, but they don't see me as queer person, they see me as Frankie, and they treat me accordingly. They're not caught up in this different, because that's what it is. I honestly, because I do believe I have more in common with someone who isn't queer than they think they do. Sure, it informs a lot of who I am, but I still think I can get along with someone who isn't. Because people just forget that you're a person because of all the crap that's out there about gender non-conforming people
and LGBT stuff. It seems kind of like our identity is, you know, that whole argument. Why are you making queer your identity? And it's like, I didn't. You did.
Yeah. You know what? The only time I ever discuss my sexuality or the label that I use is when straight people are asking me. In my circle of like queer friends, it just never comes up. The only time I've ever asked is when someone is trying to be like, you know, affirming, and they're just curious. It's like, yeah, it's because I think there's so much more to me than my sexuality and my gender identity. I think there's like, yeah, it's there, but I think there's so much more to me than that, if that makes sense.
No, I believe that too. And I mean, I believe in the individual. Like, obviously, we're part of this queer category or LGBT category, whatever you want to call it, but we are just human at the end of the day.
Yeah. And that's why I honestly perceive the current climate against trans people is just a distraction from the things that really link us together, the things that really make us connect with each other.
So to sort of summarize what you're saying, Ed, for that culture war to dissipate, you believe it's sort of elevating our common humanity?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because there's so many things we have in common, like with just each other as humans. There's so much we can relate with each other. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I like it. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I like it. Oh man, that's so cool. I feel we're polarized because we're online and these like digital communities, and I don't know if you've seen like libs of TikTok or just people pluck out extremes and then they're like, that's what the trans community are doing and they're trying to change your children and the LGBT agenda. And it's like, no, like most of us just want to get on with our lives.
I think a best example I've seen of that recently is one person said that they identified as a season, which is like fine, whatever. Like it doesn't affect me at all. Like if that's, it's not my position to judge. It's not my position to judge because honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't affect me. But they found that and they were like, they're identifying as seasons now. This is why it's so hard.
There's one person,
and they use it to drum up that whole. Yeah.
Or moon gender. Which, oh my God, I feel bad for laughing. It's just, or what was it? Moon gender meant when my gender only comes out at night. I mean, I don't know. Some of these concepts only really exist online.
Yeah. But also that's like
each to their own.
Yeah, each to their own. But I think, people really do grab these like people on the fringe
and use it to paint like LGBT in sort of one brush.
Yeah. Because it is a very diverse community. It's a very diverse community.
We don't think the same.
Sorry.
We don't all think the same.
No way. No way. In the progress flag, the black and the brown strip in there is like kind of an acknowledgement that in the beginning they were pretty fucking racist and they left people of color behind. Even though they themselves were an oppressed group, they left another group behind with that. Whereas I think a lot of people from the outside would just be like, oh, you're gay? Oh, so you mustn't be racist. You mustn't be misogynist. You mustn't be this or that. But it's a diverse community. People have different opinions. And I think the only thing that really connects us is like sexuality and gender expression.
Yeah. And we sort of had to form that community to sort of fight for our rights. I mean, there's a guy called Jonathan Haidt. He talks about identity politics can be great when we use it to elevate marginalized groups as opposed to weaponize, using it to weaponize against people, like, oh, you're a white male, so you are oppressive. And I don't like it when people use identity politics in that way. I mean, it unfortunately comes from the progressive left, but maybe just the fringe. I don't know. I'm still learning.
I think it's not just the progressive left because
the right will use identity politics but just different
just in a different way. I think it's humans like to recognize patterns. They like to, it's an evolutionary trait, pattern recognition, and I think we just do that subconsciously. We see one thing and go, okay, is the next one going to be like that? Oh, yes, it is. Or no, it's not.
It just sounds like you've got a really open mind, and you're like, it's not all black and white. It's like,
no, it's not. Yeah. It's not. I just don't think things are ever that simple. Like things are never that. It's never that simple. Like two truths can exist at once. I think because in the West we're so built up to believe that there are either good guys or bad guys, and so that's the way that we perceive the world. And we just find like one good quality about someone and go, oh my God, it's a good guy. We'll put them on this pedestal, and then you find out something horrible about them and you're like, oh my God, they're a bad guy the whole time. But it's like milkshake duck.
Milkshake duck?
Do you know that?
No. It sounds funny. That's why I laugh.
It's this rule on the internet where when someone goes viral on the internet, everyone idolizes them.
Yeah,
and then you find out something horrible about them that completely turns you off. So the whole theory behind the milkshake duck is a photo of a duck drinking a milkshake goes viral. Everyone loves milkshake duck. And then you find out that the duck is racist.
Damn.
Yeah, no, that's the concept behind milkshake duck.
I've never heard that before, but
it's a term. It's a term.
Milkshake duck.
Milkshake duck. Look it up.
Okay.
There'll be a Wikipedia page about it.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. Tell me what's next for you. What's your next show that you're creating?
I am doing this show called Dazza.
Dazza.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I worked in a very mask warehouse full of full-grown Aussie blokes, as they would call themselves, and just working around them and with them, they were just like things that they would say that were really fucking funny that I would then repeat to other people as a joke. Like every Friday you come in and you talk to them and say, "Hey, how you going?" And they just go, "It's Friday." Like just shit like that. And I would just like come up with things, and then I ended up making this character, and I've now turned it into a whole hour-long comedy show.
So it's a stand-up comedy show?
Well, no, I think it more leans into. It's character comedy. I think it leans more into like theater, but it is comedy. You know, it's not stand-up. There's not a lot of crowd.
When are you gonna showcase that, Dazza?
I'm doing it at the end of July, in Melbourne, so very soon, and then in Sydney, I'll be doing it at the start of September.
Yeah, nice. Sydney Fringe?
Sydney Fringe, yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So look out for Frankie, Fearce, Dazza.
Yes.
And Are You a Boy, Are You a Girl?
That one's done.
It's done.
I'm resting it.
You're putting it down.
I've shelved it. It's not coming back out.
It's not coming back out. Love that.
No.
All right. Oh, well, hey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you for being so open and vulnerable.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm used to it.